A vampire king found his granddaughter living in a shelter.
But this is
Where
my
is your
home. Where will I
$2
go?
million trust
The council
fund?
has made its decision.
The first
Take
time
this.
King
No,
Lucian
I
Draven
won't.
saw the
You have
girl,
no choice.
he mistook her
Go
for
now.
a ghost. Not because she was pale, though she was in the way people become pale when they've been living off donated soup and sleepless nights, but because she stood with a kind of quiet dignity that didn't belong in a place built for survival. A winter shelter at the edge of Crestfall City. Flickering fluorescent lights. Walls that smelled like bleach and old raincoats. Families stacked into cots like secrets nobody wanted to claim. And there she was, small, wrapped in an oversized gray hoodie, hair tied back with a cheap rubber band, carrying a folded blanket like it was something precious. She moved carefully between arguments, cries, and the tired shuffle of people who'd stopped believing tomorrow would be kinder. Lucian had not set foot in a human shelter in over 3 centuries. He shouldn't have been there at all. But the blood-sealed letter in his inner pocket had arrived at sunset, and its message had been simple. Your bloodline has been found. Your legacy is being stolen. And the child is running out of time. Lucian Draven, the vampire king of the Night Court, feared by enemies, obeyed by nations that didn't even know they were obeying, walked into the shelter like a man who owned the world and no one stopped him. Not the volunteer at the desk. Not the guard with the tired eyes. Not the harried manager who was already looking for someone else to blame. Because something in Lucian's presence bent the air. Humans didn't understand what they sensed. They only knew the instinctive truth. Move out of his way. He didn't come alone. His advisor, Kale Varick, stayed 2 steps behind him, scanning the room with eyes that saw heat signatures, heartbeats, and lies. Majesty, Kale murmured, voice barely audible. If the Covenant learns you're here. They already know, Lucian said quietly. His tone held no panic. Only certainty. That's why they sent the letter. Kale's jaw tightened. Then this is a trap. Everything is a trap, Lucian replied. The only question is who bleeds first. He didn't say it cruelly. He said it like weather. Then his gaze returned to the girl. She was standing near the back wall, beside a vending machine that didn't work and a bulletin board full of job postings nobody called back. She stared at a pair of shoes in her hands, children's sneakers with the soles peeling. Her fingers trembled as she tried to clean them with a tissue. And as Lucian watched, a woman's voice cut through the air like a blade. Hey, you. The shelter manager, Marla Hensley, marched toward the girl with a clipboard and a loud kind of anger that always needed an audience. You think you can just take donations meant for families? Marla snapped. Those aren't yours. The girl flinched but didn't step back. They were in the bin, she said softly. And the little boy in cot 12, he doesn't have shoes that fit. His feet are bleeding. Marla rolled her eyes. Not your problem. You're not staff. You're not even a case file. You're barely. The words stopped in Marla's mouth when she noticed Lucian standing 3 feet away. She blinked, suddenly uncertain. Can I help you, sir? Lucian didn't answer her. He looked at the girl again. Up close, she was younger than he'd thought. 17 maybe. 18 at most. Her cheeks were hollow, but her eyes were steady, brown with flecks of amber that caught the light like hidden fire. Lucian had seen those flecks before. On a woman he had loved once, long enough ago that most vampires insisted love was a myth. His daughter. His lost daughter. The daughter the Night Court had taken from him because she dared to choose a human life. His throat tightened, not with tears because kings like him didn't cry, but with something older and sharper. A truth awakening. The girl met his gaze and for a moment the shelter noise faded. She didn't recognize him. Of course she didn't. To her, he was just another rich man in a city full of rich men who passed by suffering like it was scenery. But she did something that made Kale's eyes narrow. She didn't look away. She didn't fawn. She didn't shrink. She held Lucian's gaze with the tired bravery of someone who'd learned the world would not save her, so she would have to save herself. And that, more than blood, more than prophecy, was what made Lucian's protective instincts ignite. Your name, he said, voice calm, controlled. The girl hesitated. Why? Because I asked. Pause. Then quietly, Ilara. Kale's fingers twitched at his side. Lucian's heart, an organ that had stopped beating centuries ago, felt like it moved anyway. Ilara. It wasn't the name of his daughter. But it was close enough to the stars that it felt like fate mocking him. Marla stepped between them, forcing a smile. Sir, if you're here to donate, we appreciate it. But the residents can't be. Lucian's gaze snapped to Marla. The temperature dropped. Marla's smile faltered. You spoke to her with cruelty, Lucian said softly. You do it often. Marla blinked. Excuse me? I asked her name. Not yours. Kale watched the manager's pulse quicken. Fear, confusion, anger. Humans always cycled those emotions when confronted with power. Marla lifted her chin. This is a shelter. We have rules. We can't have residents hoarding donations. She wasn't hoarding, Elara cut in, surprising even herself. I was helping. Marla's eyes flashed. You don't get to speak over me. Elara's shoulders tensed, but she didn't back down. Kale leaned closer to Lucien. Majesty, he murmured, I smell something else. Lucien's gaze stayed on Marla. What do you smell? Kale's nostrils flared slightly. Fear. And greed. Lucien almost smiled. Greed was easier to destroy than most things. He turned back to Elara. How long have you been here? Elara hesitated again, as if the truth might cost her the little safety she'd managed to carve out. A few months, she said. Since my foster placement ended. Marla scoffed. She means she got kicked out. She's difficult. Elara's eyes flashed. I asked where my paperwork went. I asked why my caseworker changed 3 times in 1 month. I asked why my account. She stopped. Her breath caught. Lucien's gaze sharpened. Your account. Elara swallowed. Never mind. No. Lucien could hear the lie in her voice. Not because he was a vampire, but because he was a king. A king knew when someone had been trained to stop talking. Trained by fear. Trained by consequences. He stepped closer to Elara, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Someone has been stealing from you, he said. Elara's eyes widened. How would you know that? Because your shoulders carry the weight of a person who used to believe she had a future, and was told she didn't deserve it. Elara stared at him, and for a second her face cracked, just slightly, like a mask slipping. Then it hardened again. I don't need pity, she whispered. Lucien's expression didn't change. Good. Because I don't offer pity. He held out his hand. Not like a savior. Like a ruler making an invitation. I offer answers, he said. And I offer justice. Elara looked at his hand like it was a trap. She didn't take it. Instead, she stepped back and lifted her chin the way she'd probably done in front of foster parents, teachers, caseworkers, judges, anyone who held power over her life. Who are you? She asked. Lucien's lips parted, and for a heartbeat he almost told her the truth. I am your blood. I am your family. I am the monster your mother ran from, and the one who never stopped looking for her. But he didn't. Not yet. Because in the far corner of the shelter, Kale's eyes locked onto a man near the exit. Hood up, posture wrong, heartbeat too controlled. A watcher. Not human. Kale's voice was a whisper. Majesty. We're being observed. Lucien didn't turn his head. I know. Elara followed his gaze anyway and noticed the man too. Her body stiffened instinctively. That reaction, fear mixed with recognition, told Lucien everything. She had seen that man before. He stepped closer to Elara again, and this time his voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Do you feel unsafe here? Elara's jaw clenched. It's a shelter. Nobody is safe anywhere. Answer the question, Lucien said, and the words carried a force that made even Marla fall silent. Elara hesitated, then nodded once. Barely. Yes. Lucien turned to Marla. Pack her belongings. Marla's mouth fell open. What? I didn't ask for your opinion, Lucien said coldly. I told you what would happen. Marla recovered her voice quickly, pushing her clipboard against her chest like armor. You can't just take a resident. We have procedures. Paperwork. She's under our care. Elara's eyes widened, alarm rising. Wait, I'm not going anywhere with a stranger. Lucien's gaze softened, just a fraction, when he looked back at Elara. You're right, he said, and the admission startled her. You shouldn't. Kale's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to Lucien compromising. Lucien continued, his voice low. But you also shouldn't stay here with predators who wear human faces. Elara's breath hitched. Marla's eyes flashed with outrage. Predators? How dare you? Lucien ignored her. He held Elara's gaze. Give me 10 minutes, he said. Let my advisor speak with you. Ask whatever you want. If you decide to stay, we leave and you never see us again. Elara stared at him, suspicion warring with exhaustion. Why would you do that? She whispered. Why would you care? Lucien didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was dangerous. Because if he told her she was his granddaughter, his last living blood tie in a world that had tried to erase his family, then the Covenant would stop at nothing to claim her. Or silence her. Or turn her into a weapon. So Lucien gave her a different truth. One she could hold without breaking. Because someone once did something kind for me when I didn't deserve it, he said. And I never forgot. Alara's eyes flicked down then back up. Then reluctantly she nodded. 10 minutes, she said. Kale stepped forward, polite but alert. My name is Kale. Would you prefer we speak somewhere quieter? Alara glanced around. There isn't quieter. Kale's gaze drifted, briefly, to the man near the exit again. Then we'll make it quieter, Kale murmured. Lucien remained still, watching the room like a storm choosing where to strike. Marla muttered angrily and stomped away, barking at volunteers. And Alara sat on the edge of a cot, gripping the worn blanket in her lap like it was the last thing she owned. Kale crouched a few feet away, non-threatening. You don't have to trust us, Kale said. But you should know this, there are people looking for you. Alara's face went tight. Who? Kale studied her carefully. A man with money. An influence. Someone who has been moving your case around like a chess piece. Alara's lips parted, a tremor running through her. I knew it. Kale tilted his head. Tell me what you know. Alara hesitated, then exhaled slowly as if admitting the truth might make it real. My mother died when I was little, she said. A car crash. That's what they told me. Lucien's body went still. Kale noticed but didn't react. Alara continued, voice shaking slightly. After that, I was sent through foster homes. Some were okay. Some were not. But there was always this thing. This rumor. That my mother left me something. Kale's gaze sharpened. Something like money? Alara nodded. I didn't care at first. I just wanted a home. But when I turned 16, I got a letter. Kale leaned in. From who? A law office, Alara said. It said I had a trust fund. $2 million. It was supposed to be mine when I turned 18. Kale's jaw tightened. And what happened? Alara's hands clenched around the blanket. I went to ask my caseworker. She acted like she'd never heard of it. Then she transferred me to a new worker. Then another. Then, suddenly the law office closed. Their number didn't work. Their building was empty. Kale's voice dropped. Someone erased the trail. Alara's eyes shone with angry tears she refused to let fall. And then my foster placement ended early. They said I was too complicated. I asked too many questions. I got sent here. Kale's gaze flicked to Lucien. Lucien's expression was carved from stone, but his eyes were lethal. Alara looked down, voice smaller now. I know it sounds crazy, but I think someone wanted me broke. Quiet. Invisible. Kale nodded. You're not crazy. Alara laughed once, sharp and bitter. That's a first. Kale's voice softened. What's the name on the letter? The trust paperwork. Alara swallowed. It said, Alara Vale. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly. Vale. Not Draven. Not Iron Vein. A hidden name. A cover name. Lucien's daughter had done that. Changed names, buried trails, hid from the night court. Alara looked up suddenly, wary. Why are you asking me this? Kale didn't lie. Because the man you spoke to, he said, nodding toward Lucien, doesn't walk into shelters for charity. Alara's breath caught. Then why is he here? Kale's gaze held hers. Because he's been searching for someone. Alara's heart hammered. Someone like me? Kale didn't answer directly. Instead he asked, do you know anything about your mother's family? Alara shook her head. No. They told me she didn't have anyone. Kale's voice was gentle. They lied. Alara stared at him. The air felt heavier, like the world was tilting. And in the corner of the room, the hooded watcher shifted his stance. Lucien moved without anyone noticing. One moment he was near the cot. The next he was standing between Alara and the exit. A human wouldn't have seen the movement. They would have only felt the sudden pressure in the atmosphere, like the room had become too small. The hooded man froze. Lucien's gaze locked on him. The watcher's eyes flashed, pale, almost silver. Not a full vampire. A bound servant of the covenant. A hunter. Lucien's voice was quiet. Deadly. You have a message, he said. The watcher's lips curled. You shouldn't be here, King of Night. Every hair on Alara's arms lifted. She stared at the stranger, confusion and fear twisting together. King. Night? What was happening? Kale's hand moved subtly, ready. Lucien didn't flinch. Tell your masters, he said, that the child is under my protection. The watcher smiled, but it held no warmth. Protection? He echoed. From them, or from you? Alara's breath hitched. Lucien's eyes didn't leave the hunter. Say it. The hunter's gaze flicked to Alara, like he was memorizing her face. She's awakened, he said softly. And the world will notice. You can't hide her in a shelter forever. Lucien's voice dropped into something ancient. I don't hide what belongs to me. The hunter's smile sharpened. Then he turned and walked toward the door. And as he passed, he brushed his fingers against the wall. A symbol appeared, dark as dried blood, carved into the paint like it was soft clay. 3 daggers piercing a crown. Elara gasped. Cale's face went grim. Lucien's expression didn't change, but the room seemed to dim around him. The Covenant's mark. A warning. A countdown. Elara stared at Lucien now, her voice trembling. What is that? She demanded. What did he mean by awakened? Who are you? Lucien turned to face her fully. For the first time since he entered the shelter, his control slipped just enough for his real emotion to show. Not anger. Not coldness. Something closer to grief and determination. Elara, he said softly, and her name sounded different in his mouth, like a vow. You asked me who I am. Elara's chest rose and fell quickly. Yes. Lucien took one slow step closer, careful as if sudden movement might frighten her. I am someone who knows your money was stolen, he said. Someone who knows you were placed here on purpose. Elara's eyes burned. Then help me. Lucien nodded once. I will. Cale watched Elara closely, ready for panic, denial, flight. But Elara didn't run. Instead, she said the bravest thing a powerless girl could say to a powerful man. Then prove it, she whispered. Lucien's gaze held hers, unblinking. All right, he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a slim envelope. Not the Covenant's letter. Another one, sealed with black wax. He held it out to her. Elara Vale, he said. Inside is a document that was never meant to reach you. A trust ledger. Names. Transactions. Elara stared at it like it might explode. And this, Lucien continued, voice low and steady, is the first step in getting your life back. Elara's fingers trembled as she took the envelope. She didn't open it yet. She looked up at him, eyes shining. What do you want from me? She asked. Lucien's answer came without hesitation. I want you safe, he said. And I want you to stop surviving like you deserve nothing. Elara swallowed hard. She wanted to believe him. But belief had betrayed her too many times. So she did the only thing she could do. She tested him. If I go with you, she said quietly, what happens to the people here? The little boy with bleeding feet? The mothers who get treated like trash? The ones who don't have a vampire king walking in with a fancy coat? Lucien paused. Cale's brows lifted slightly. Elara's question wasn't just about herself. It was about justice. It was about whether Lucien's power would only protect blood, or whether it could protect goodness. Lucien studied her, and something softened behind his eyes. Then we change this place, he said. Elara blinked. What? Lucien turned his gaze to Marla across the room. Marla was laughing with a donor-looking man near the desk, as if misery was just business. Lucien's voice was quiet, but it carried. This shelter will be audited, he said. Its funding traced. Its staff investigated. Marla froze mid-laugh. Lucien's eyes locked onto her like a sentence. And anyone who profited from suffering, he added, will return what they stole. Elara's lips parted. She didn't know whether to be afraid of him, or in awe. Cale leaned down slightly, murmuring to her. He's serious. Elara stared at Lucien again. Then finally she nodded. Okay, she whispered. I'll go. Lucien's shoulders loosened, barely. He extended his hand again. This time, Elara hesitated only a moment before placing her fingers in his. His skin was cool. Not ice. Not dead. Just different. A shiver ran through her, like her body recognized something her mind couldn't explain. Lucien tightened his grip gently. You're not alone anymore, he said. Elara's throat tightened and she looked away quickly so nobody could see her tears. They walked toward the exit. Marla stepped forward, voice sharp. You can't take her. She has to sign release forms. Lucien didn't even slow down. Cale lifted a small card and placed it on Marla's clipboard. A plain black card with a single name embossed in silver. Varick and Associates. Under it, a number. Marla's eyes widened. Her hands began to shake. Cale smiled politely. Call that number. Tell them you interfered with a legal retrieval of stolen assets. Marla swallowed. Legal? Cale's smile didn't reach his eyes. And tell them you're prepared to explain why donations have been missing from your inventory for 6 months. Marla's face went gray. Lucien and Elara stepped into the cold night. Snow drifted through streetlights like falling ash. A black car waited at the curb, too sleek for this neighborhood. Elara paused beside it, heart pounding. She looked up at Lucien, her voice barely audible. "I don't even know your real name," she said. Lucien held her gaze. "Lucien," he said. Elara repeated it softly, tasting the syllables like they belonged in a storybook. Lucien opened the car door for her, a gesture old-fashioned enough to feel unreal. Elara climbed in, clutching the envelope to her chest like a lifeline. As the door closed, Lucien looked back at the shelter. At the covenant mark carved into the wall. At the human world that had failed this girl on purpose. His voice was almost too quiet to hear. "They stole $2 million from a child," he murmured. Cale stood beside him, face grim. "And they made her believe she deserved nothing." Lucien's eyes darkened. "Then we teach them," he said. "What happens when they steal from my blood?" The car pulled away into the snow. And in the shadows above the streetlight, something watched. Not human. Not vampire. Something older, waiting for the moment Elara's hidden legacy fully awakened. Because money was only the surface. The trust fund was only bait. What they truly wanted was the power sleeping in the granddaughter of a vampire king. And now Lucien had claimed her. Which meant the real war was about to begin. The estate of Night and the girl who did not belong. The gates of Ironvale Estate opened without a sound. Elara noticed that first. No creak. No rumble. No guard stepping out to check papers. The iron gates simply recognized Lucien Draven, and obeyed. The car glided forward along a winding road lined with ancient trees whose branches arched overhead like cathedral ribs. Snow dusted their bark, but the leaves did not fall. They shimmered faintly, silver-veined, alive in a way Elara couldn't explain. She pressed her forehead lightly against the cold glass of the window. This place didn't feel rich. It felt old. Too old. Like it had watched empires rise, rot, and disappear without ever needing to move. Her fingers tightened around the envelope in her lap, the one holding proof of a stolen future. "You can still change your mind," Lucien said quietly from the seat beside her. Elara looked at him. He sat with perfect stillness, hands folded loosely, dark coat open now, revealing a simple black shirt beneath. No jewelry. No obvious signs of wealth. Just presence. The kind that made the air pay attention. "Where would I go?" she asked softly. Lucien didn't answer because there was no good one. The car slowed, then stopped. Cale stepped out first, scanning the surroundings even though the estate grounds were enclosed by wards older than most countries. He opened Elara's door and offered a hand. She hesitated. Not because she didn't trust him, but because her legs felt weak, like she'd stepped out of her life and hadn't landed yet. Lucien noticed. Without a word, he stepped closer. Not touching her, not crowding her, just existing near enough that she felt steadier. Elara exhaled and took Cale's hand. The ground crunched softly beneath her shoes as she stepped out into a courtyard illuminated by moonlight and low-burning lanterns. The stone beneath her feet was warm despite the snow. She frowned. "The ground? Runes?" Cale said calmly. "Heat, protection, and concealment." Elara stared at him. "You're saying that like it's normal." Cale gave a faint smile. "You'll get used to it." "I doubt that," she muttered. The front doors of the estate were massive, dark wood carved with symbols she didn't recognize but somehow felt. As Lucien approached, the doors opened inward on their own. Elara flinched. Lucien noticed again. "I should have warned you," he said gently. Elara shook her head. "No, I think I needed to see it." Inside, the estate was nothing like she expected. No gold everywhere. No red velvet. No Gothic excess. Instead, there were stone floors softened by woven rugs, walls lined with books instead of portraits, tall windows looking out over moonlit gardens. Candles burned in sconces, but there were also discreet electric lights, modern, carefully integrated. It felt lived in. Not a palace. A home that had learned to adapt. A woman stood near the base of the staircase. She was human. Elara knew that instantly. Warmth radiated from her in a way that felt grounding, familiar. She wore a soft gray sweater, her dark hair pulled back loosely, eyes sharp but kind. She looked at Elara first, not Lucien. "Oh," the woman said softly. "You found her." Lucien inclined his head. "Mara." Mara crossed the room in long, purposeful strides and stopped in front of Elara, studying her face, not critically but attentively. "You're cold?" Mara said. Elara blinked. "I'm fine." Mara didn't argue. She simply draped a warm shawl over Elara's shoulders, tucking it in with practiced hands. Elara froze. No one had done that for her in years. Not without asking something in return. Thank you, Ilara whispered. Mara smiled faintly. You're safe here. Safe. The word felt dangerous. Lucien watched the exchange closely, something unreadable in his gaze. Kale, he said, ensure the perimeter is sealed. Kale nodded and disappeared down a side corridor. Lucien turned back to Ilara. There are rooms prepared. You can rest, shower, eat. I want to read this first, Ilara said, holding up the envelope. Lucien didn't stop her. Mara's expression sharpened slightly. You might want to sit. Ilara did. They moved to a small sitting area near a fire that burned blue instead of orange. Ilara's hands shook as she broke the seal and pulled out the papers. Ledger sheets. Account numbers. Dates. Her eyes skimmed, then stopped. Her breath hitched. This says the trust was accessed, she whispered. Multiple times. Over years. Lucien's voice was calm but cold. By a proxy. Ilara swallowed. My foster guardian. And a caseworker. And someone listed as legal executor. Mara's jaw tightened. They drained it. Ilara nodded slowly, tears blurring the page. They didn't just steal it. They planned it. They waited until I was old enough to ask questions, then buried the evidence. Lucien leaned forward slightly. And they did it knowing you would have no power to fight back. Ilara's voice cracked. They made me think I imagined it. Mara reached for Ilara's hand. This time Ilara didn't pull away. I want them punished, Ilara said quietly. Lucien met her gaze. They will be. Mara looked at him sharply. Lucien. They stole from a child, he said evenly. They used the system meant to protect her. Ilara looked between them. You talk like this happens often. Lucien's eyes darkened. It does. Mara squeezed Ilara's hand. But not everyone ignores it. Ilara hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her chest since the shelter. That man, the one who marked the wall. He said I was awakened. Silence fell. The fire crackled softly. Lucien's jaw tightened just enough for Ilara to notice. Yes, he said finally. You are. What does that mean? She asked. Lucien didn't answer immediately. Instead he stood. Come with me. They walked through the estate, down a long corridor that ended in a circular room with a domed ceiling. Symbols were carved into the stone floor, older than language, humming faintly. This is a truth chamber, Lucien said. It reveals what already exists. It cannot create lies. Ilara's pulse quickened. You're scaring me. Lucien turned to face her fully. Then tell me if you want me to stop. Ilara searched his face. The Vampire King. The man who terrified predators. The one who could crush anyone who stood in his way. Yet he was asking her permission. She nodded. Okay. Lucien gestured for her to step into the center. The moment her foot crossed the circle, the air shifted. Warmth surged through Ilara's veins, not painful, not violent, just awake. Her vision sharpened. The runes beneath her feet glowed faintly. Mara sucked in a breath. Lucien? Ilara gasped. Her reflection shimmered on the polished stone wall. For a heartbeat. Her eyes flashed silver. Not blazing. Not uncontrollable. Just present. Ilara staggered back. What's happening to me? Lucien stepped forward instantly, grounding her with his presence. Not touching, but close enough that her body responded. You are not human, he said gently. Not fully. Ilara shook her head wildly. No, that's not possible. I bleed. I get sick. You age, Mara said softly. You feel. You dream. That doesn't make you weak. Lucien's voice was steady. Your mother was my daughter. The words hit Ilara like a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt. Don't, she whispered. Don't lie to me. Lucien didn't flinch. I don't. Ilara laughed once, broken. That's impossible. My mother was human. She chose to be, Lucien said. She severed her immortality to protect you. Ilara's chest burned. You're saying my mother was a vampire? Yes. And you're saying you're? Her father? Lucien finished. Your grandfather. The word felt wrong and right all at once. Ilara backed away until she hit the stone wall. This is insane, she said. This is insane. Mara moved closer, voice soft but firm. I know it feels that way. But your body already knows the truth. Ilara pressed her hands to her chest. Her heartbeat was racing, but steady. No pain. No hunger. Just awareness. You've been awakening slowly, Lucien said. Strength. Perception. Resistance to toxins. Elara remembered the gala. The poison. The way her body had rejected it. You were never meant to awaken publicly, Lucien continued. The covenant forbids it. Elara's voice trembled. That woman said I had 30 days. Lucien's gaze hardened. They did. Mara turned sharply. They gave her a deadline? Lucien nodded. Before her power stabilizes. Elara swallowed. And then what? Lucien didn't soften the truth. Then they will try to end you. The room went very still. Elara slid down the wall, sitting on the cold stone. Mara knelt in front of her instantly. Hey, look at me. Elara did. You're not alone, Mara said. Not anymore. Elara laughed weakly. That's what everyone says before everything falls apart. Lucien crouched in front of her too, bringing himself to her level. I failed your mother once, he said quietly. I will not fail you. Elara studied his face, searching for deception, manipulation, anything. She found only resolve. Why didn't you come sooner? She asked. Lucien's expression flickered, pain, old and sharp. Because hiding you kept you alive, he said. Until it didn't. Elara closed her eyes. Her life, her suffering had been a shield. A choice made by people who loved her. That didn't make it hurt less. What do they want from me? She whispered. Lucien's voice dropped. Your power. Your bloodline. And the proof that their laws are wrong. Elara opened her eyes, fear slowly hardening into something else. Anger. They stole my money. My childhood. My choices, she said. And now they want my life. Lucien nodded. Yes. Elara pushed herself to her feet. Her legs shook but she stood. Then I'm done being quiet. Mara smiled through tears. Lucien watched her closely. You don't understand what defying them means, he warned. Elara met his gaze, her eyes catching the rune light. I understand what letting them win means, she said. And I won't. For a moment, Lucien saw his daughter in her. And something more. Something stronger. Kale appeared at the doorway. Majesty. The perimeter is sealed. Lucien straightened. Good. Kale looked at Elara, assessing. So she knows. She does, Lucien said. Kale inclined his head respectfully to Elara. Then welcome to the war. Elara swallowed. I didn't ask for a war. Lucien's voice was calm, absolute. Neither did I. He placed a hand over his heart, a gesture ancient and binding. But if they want to destroy you, he said, they will go through me first. Elara felt it then. Not just safety. Belonging. For the first time in her life. And far beyond the estate walls, in a chamber carved from obsidian and bone, a council of pale figures watched a projection of Elara's awakening eyes. One of them smiled. The king has claimed her, a voice hissed. Another replied, colder, then we break him, through her. The countdown had begun. And Elara Vale, granddaughter of a vampire king, had just stepped into a destiny the world was not ready for. The power they never meant her to have. Elara didn't sleep. She lay awake beneath a canopy of dark silk and soft light, listening to the estate breathe. That was the only way she could describe it. Ironvale Estate wasn't silent at night, it hummed. Stone carried memory. Wood whispered history. Somewhere deep beneath the floors, something ancient pulsed like a heart that had never stopped beating. And inside her chest something answered. She pressed her palm against her sternum, breathing slowly, grounding herself the way Mara had taught her only hours ago. In for 4. Hold for 2. Out for 6. Her heartbeat steadied. But the awareness didn't fade. She could hear the guards changing shifts at the outer gate. She could hear Kale's boots on stone 3 corridors away. She could hear Lucien, perfectly still, in his study below, eyes open, waiting. Waiting for what? For her to break? For her to accept? For her to become something he feared? Elara swung her legs off the bed and stood. The floor warmed beneath her bare feet. That's new, she muttered. She padded to the mirror. For a long moment she looked exactly the same. Same dark hair. Same tired eyes. Same faint scar on her collarbone from a childhood fall nobody had bothered to document. Then she leaned closer. Her reflection leaned closer too, but her eyes shimmered faintly, silver threading through brown like moonlight through water. Elara swallowed. I'm still me, she whispered. The reflection didn't argue. Training began at dawn. Lucien didn't summon her. He didn't command her. He waited. Elara found him in the eastern courtyard, standing barefoot on frost-covered stone, eyes closed, hands behind his back. He wore no crown, no armor, Just black and silver training clothes that made him look less like a king and more like a storm-given human shape. Cale stood nearby, arms crossed. Mara leaned against a pillar, coffee in hand, watching Alara with a look that said, "Don't let them scare you." Lucien opened his eyes the moment Alara stepped into the courtyard. "You came," he said. Alara lifted her chin. "You said I could choose." "You did," Lucien replied. "And you chose to stand." Something warm spread through her chest at that. Lucien gestured to the center of the courtyard. "Tell me what you feel." Alara frowned. "Right now?" "Yes." She closed her eyes. The cold didn't bother her. The air felt thick, layered. She could sense Lucien like gravity, constant, undeniable. Cale was sharper, coiled. Mara was warmth, anchoring the space. And beneath it all, something is pulling, Alara said slowly. "Like the world wants me to listen." Lucien's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his control. Cale straightened. "That's not normal." Lucien's voice was careful. "What do you hear?" Alara's brow furrowed. "I hear intent," she said. "Not thoughts. Not voices. But pressure. Like emotions leave fingerprints." Mara's coffee stilled halfway to her lips. Lucien exhaled slowly. Hybrid resonance. Cale swore under his breath. "That hasn't appeared in centuries." Alara opened her eyes. "You're talking about me like I'm a weapon." Lucien met her gaze evenly. "No. I'm talking about you like you're something the Covenant failed to erase." He stepped closer, not threatening, not looming. "Most half-bloods manifest strength, speed, heightened senses," he continued. "You have those. But this." He tapped two fingers lightly against his temple. "This is perception without hunger. Power without bloodlust." Alara's stomach flipped. "Is that bad?" Lucien's lips curved into the faintest smile. "It terrifies them." By midday Alara's head hurt. Not from strain, but from realization. She could feel lies like static. She could sense fear before it showed on a face. She could touch an object and feel the emotional residue clinging to it. A cup Mara handed her carried comfort. A blade Cale set down carried violence, old, disciplined, restrained. And when Lucien handed her a folded piece of paper, her hand shook. "This is from your trust account," Lucien said quietly. Alara didn't open it yet. She already felt it. Greed. Entitlement. Cold calculation. She looked up sharply. "They knew." Lucien nodded. "They always know." Mara's voice was tight. "Names?" Lucien handed Alara a second file. Caseworker. Foster guardian. Legal executor. A shell charity. Alara stared at the names that had shaped her life. People who smiled. People who scolded her for asking questions. People who told her to be grateful. Her jaw clenched. "I want to see them," she said. Cale frowned. "Majesty." Lucien raised a hand. "You will," Lucien said to Alara. "But not yet." Alara's eyes flashed silver. "Why not?" "Because they are not the real enemy," Lucien said. "They are tools." Alara swallowed her anger, forcing herself to breathe. Mara stepped closer. "Justice doesn't always mean destruction," she said gently. "Sometimes it means exposure." Alara closed her eyes. Exposure. She could do that. That night the Covenant tested her. It began with a dream. Alara stood in the shelter again, fluorescent lights flickering, children crying, the smell of bleach and fear thick in the air. Marla stood at the desk, smiling too widely. "You never belonged anywhere," Marla said. The walls began to bleed shadow. Figures stepped out, pale, elegant, watching. "Choose," a voice echoed. "Power or peace?" Alara felt fear claw at her chest. Then another feeling rose beneath it. Anger. Not wild. Not desperate. Focused. "No," Alara said aloud. The dream shattered like glass. She sat upright in bed, gasping. The air was cold. Too cold. A figure stood near the window. Pale. Still. Smiling. "Impressive," Lydia Thorne said. "You rejected the construct." Alara's heart raced, but she didn't scream. Instead she focused. Lydia's presence pressed against her mind like a needle, but Alara pushed back. The pressure eased. Lydia's smile thinned. "Ah, there it is." Alara swung her legs off the bed, steady. "You can't control me." Lydia tilted her head. "No. But I can test you." The shadows lunged. Alara didn't think. She reached. And the shadows recoiled, dissolving like smoke in sunlight. Lydia stepped back, eyes narrowing. "You repel compulsion." Alara stood, trembling but unbroken. "Get out." Lydia studied her for a long moment. Then she laughed softly. You really are his blood. The shadows withdrew. The room warmed. Lydia faded like mist. But her parting words lingered. 30 days, little hybrid. Impress me again. Lucien arrived seconds later. He didn't ask how he knew. He took in Alara's stance, her steady breathing, the absence of fear. You stood your ground, he said. Alara nodded. She came into my head. Lucien's jaw tightened. They crossed a line. Alara met his gaze. So did I. Lucien studied her carefully. Then he bowed his head. Not deeply. Not ceremonially. But enough. You saved yourself, he said. And that matters. The next morning, Alara asked for a laptop. Kale raised a brow. To fight an ancient vampire council? Alara smiled faintly. To fight people who think nobody's watching. 3 days later, headlines broke. Local charity executors under investigation. Misuse of foster trust funds revealed. Whistleblower reports systemic theft. Marla was arrested. The caseworker resigned. Accounts were frozen. And every dollar, every stolen cent, was traced. Alara watched the news in silence. Mara sat beside her. How do you feel? Alara thought for a moment. Like they can't hurt anyone else, she said. Lucien watched from the doorway. Pride stirred, dangerous, unfamiliar. The Covenant responded that night. An assassin slipped past the outer wards, something ancient, fast, trained for one purpose. Lucien met it in the lower hall. Steel rang. Stone cracked. Lucien fought like a force of nature, but the assassin was prepared. A blade struck true. Lucien staggered. Blood, dark and shimmering, hit the floor. Alara felt it like a scream in her bones. She didn't hesitate. She ran. The assassin turned. Too slow. Alara reached out, not with strength, but with will. The assassin froze, choking, not held by force but by truth. Every crime, every order, every lie. It crushed him. He fled, screaming into shadow. Lucien sank to one knee. Alara was there instantly, hands glowing faintly as she pressed them to his wound. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. Lucien met her eyes. You're saving me, he said. The wound closed. Slowly. Cleanly. Lucien inhaled sharply. Alive. Alara swayed and Lucien caught her. For the first time the roles reversed. When she woke hours later, Mara was smiling through tears. Lucien stood nearby, pale but steady. You saved my life, he said. Alara's voice was hoarse. Guess I'm not just baggage. Lucien's expression softened. No, he said. You are my legacy. Far away the Covenant watched the footage in silence. One voice finally spoke. She heals him. Another answered coldly. Then she must never be allowed to finish becoming what she is. The war had shifted. And Alara, once invisible, had become the most dangerous truth in their world. The ultimatum of blood and mercy. The Covenant did not rage. They did not scream. They did not rush. They waited. That was what made them terrifying. 3 nights after Lucien's blood hit the stone floor of Ironvale Estate, the moon vanished behind a veil of ash-colored cloud, and every ward on the property shuddered at once, like a body flinching before pain. Alara felt it instantly. She was in the library with Mara, pretending, poorly, to focus on a book about hybrid lore when the pressure rolled through her chest like a low-frequency hum. Mara stiffened. They're here. Alara was already standing. Not physically. Mara's eyes searched her face. How do you know? Alara swallowed. Because they're not afraid. The temperature in the room dropped. Candles dimmed. And the air folded inward like reality was being pinched by invisible fingers. Lucien appeared in the doorway, coat already on, expression carved from calm fury. Stay behind me, he said. Alara shook her head. No. Lucien turned sharply. Alara. I won't hide anymore, she said, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. You taught me that. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. Then, slowly he nodded. Then stand beside me. The center of the room darkened. Shadows pooled, thick and deliberate, until 3 figures emerged as if stepping through a tear in the world. Lydia Thorne stood in the middle. Flanked by 2 elders whose eyes glowed faintly gold. Ancient vampires whose names had been erased from history to protect the illusion of peace. Lydia smiled. You heal kings now, she said to Alara. How very inconvenient. Alara met her gaze. You poisoned a gala full of humans to test me. Lydia inclined her head. A calculated risk. Lucien's voice dropped. You crossed Covenant law. Lydia turned to him. So did you, Lord Draven, when you claimed her. The air thickened with old power. This ends now, Lydia said calmly. We offer you a choice. Alara's chest tightened. You already gave me one. That was before, Lydia replied. Before you healed the king. Before you exposed our servants. Before you proved that half-bloods can surpass us. One of the elders stepped forward, voice like dry leaves. She destabilizes everything. Alara clenched her fists. I didn't ask to. And yet you did, the elder replied. By existing. Lucien's hand moved subtly closer to Alara's, close enough that she felt the promise of protection without being claimed. What is your ultimatum? Lucien asked. Lydia's eyes flicked to Alara. She submits to severance, Lydia said. Her power stripped. Her lifespan human. She lives quietly under our supervision. Alara felt something cold settle in her stomach. And if she refuses? Lucien asked. The elder answered. Then we remove the variables. Alara understood immediately. Mara. Go. Anyone who protected her. Collateral. Lucien's jaw tightened, but his voice remained level. You would slaughter innocents. Lydia shrugged. We would preserve our world. Alara took a step forward before Lucien could stop her. No, she said. All eyes turned to her. You don't get to frame this like mercy, Alara continued. You stole my childhood. You killed my mother's freedom. You let humans bleed so you could stay comfortable. Lydia's smile sharpened. Careful. Alara didn't stop. I won't choose your severance. And I won't choose violence. The elders exchanged glances. Lydia studied her. You think there's a third option? I know there is, Alara said. Because you're afraid of it. Silence stretched. Lucien stared at her, pride and fear warring behind his eyes. What do you propose? Lydia asked. Alara inhaled slowly, feeling the hum of the estate, the weight of Lucien's presence, the warmth of Mara's humanity. I expose you, Alara said. Not to humans, but to your own. The elders stiffened. Alara continued, voice gaining strength. Your lies. Your executions. Your secret wars. The way you've hunted hybrids for centuries while preaching balance. Lydia's expression cooled. You think the houses will listen to a half-blood? They'll listen when they feel it, Alara replied. I don't compel minds. I reveal truth. Lucien's breath caught. He understood now. What she was. Not a weapon. A mirror. You do this, Lydia said softly, and there will be no hiding. Alara met her gaze without flinching. Good. For the first time Lydia looked uncertain. The elders conferred in low, rapid tones. Finally Lydia straightened. 7 days, she said. 7 days before the conclave. If you fail to sway them, we end this our way. She looked at Lucien. Prepare yourself to lose another child. Lucien's eyes burned. Leave. The shadows folded inward. The covenant vanished. The room exhaled. Mara rushed to Alara's side. Are you insane? Alara let out a shaky laugh. Probably. Lucien stared at her, long searching. You just challenged an empire, he said quietly. Alara met his gaze. You raised me too. Lucien closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, something had shifted. You are no longer under my protection alone, he said. I will stand with you. The betrayal came the next night. Kale was the one who discovered it. A hidden channel. A coded transmission. Information about Ironvale's defenses leaked. From inside. Lucien summoned the council of trusted retainers. The traitor revealed himself before anyone could accuse. A steward. Human-born. Someone Alara remembered smiling at her kindly on her first day. I'm sorry, he said, tears streaming. They had my sister. Alara stepped forward. Where is she? The steward shook. Dead. They sent proof. Lucien's fury was a living thing. Why didn't you come to us? He demanded. The man sobbed. Because you would have gone to war. Alara felt the weight of the choice pressing on her. This was what the covenant expected. Execution. Blood. Fear. She stepped between Lucien and the traitor. No, she said. Lucien's eyes widened. Alara. He's not our enemy, she said softly. He's their victim. The room held its breath. Alara looked at the steward. You will testify, she said. At the conclave. You will tell them everything. The man stared at her. They'll kill me. Alara nodded. Yes, if you run. She met his eyes. But if you stand with me, I'll protect you. Lucien felt it then. The shift. Not dominance. Leadership. The steward bowed his head. I will. Lucien said nothing. Later, alone in the observatory, Lucien watched Alara trace constellations on the glass. You should have let me punish him, Lucien said quietly. Alara didn't turn. That's what they want. Lucien studied her profile, so like his daughter's, and yet stronger in ways his daughter never had the chance to be. You are changing our world, he said. Alara's voice was soft. I'm just refusing to let it stay cruel. Lucien realized then, with a shock that stole his breath. She might surpass him. Not in power. In purpose. And for the first time in centuries, the Vampire King felt something dangerously close to hope. Far away the Covenant prepared for the conclave. And for the first time they were afraid. The dawn that chose mercy. The conclave was held beneath a sky that had not seen sunlight in 1,000 years. Deep below the ruins of an ancient city, older than maps, older than memory, stone pillars rose like the ribs of a buried god. Veins of luminous crystal pulsed faintly in the walls, responding to the presence of vampire blood. Power saturated the air, thick enough to taste. Alara felt it the moment she stepped through the threshold. Not fear. Recognition. Every vampire in the chamber turned toward her at once. Elders in ceremonial black. Lords of forgotten territories. Watchers who had enforced silence for centuries. They expected arrogance. They expected defiance. They expected Lucien Draven to stand in front of her like a shield. Instead, Alara walked forward alone. Lucien stood behind her. Not as a wall. As support. A murmur rippled through the chamber. She dares. She's only half. She doesn't understand where she stands. Alara stopped at the center of the circle etched into the floor. The crystals brightened. Lydia Thorne emerged from the shadows, her expression unreadable. You have 7 days, Lydia said. You chose to arrive on the 7th. Alara nodded. I didn't want to waste your time. Somewhere in the chamber someone scoffed. Lucien's jaw tightened, but he did not move. Lydia gestured. Then speak. Convince us why you should live. Alara inhaled slowly. She did not shout. She did not beg. I won't convince you, she said calmly. I will show you. She stepped forward and placed her palm against the crystal floor. The chamber shuddered. Gasps erupted as light surged outward, not violent, not destructive, but revealing. Images filled the air. Executions disguised as disappearances. Children hunted for carrying mixed blood. Hybrids erased before they could speak their first truths. The elders recoiled. This is forbidden, one hissed. It's memory, Alara replied. You can't forbid what already happened. The steward stepped forward then, hands shaking, voice breaking as he told his story. His sister. The threats. The coercion. Shame rippled through the chamber. Lucien watched Alara in stunned silence. This was not power taken. This was power shared. You say we endanger your secrecy, Alara continued. But secrecy built on cruelty rots. It always has. Lydia's voice was tight. And what would you replace it with? Chaos. Alara met her gaze. Choice, she said. Accountability. And mercy. A sharp laugh echoed. Mercy makes us weak. Alara turned toward the voice. No. Mercy makes us different. She lifted her chin. My mother chose humanity because she believed love mattered more than dominance. You killed her freedom for that. Lucien's breath caught. Alara's voice did not waver. I choose something else. I choose both. The crystals flared. Alara cried out, not in pain but release as silver light poured through her veins. Her eyes blazed, not silver alone now but gold threaded through it. Hybrid resonance stabilized. Complete. Not immortal. Not mortal. Balanced. The chamber fell silent. Lydia stared. Impossible. Alara lowered her glowing hands. You were afraid because you thought power only existed one way. She looked around the room. You were wrong. The elders whispered urgently among themselves. Finally one stepped forward, ancient, weary. We cannot kill what has already changed us, he said. Another nodded slowly. The covenant was meant to preserve us, not erase our future. Lydia's shoulders sagged just slightly. You would dismantle everything, she said to Alara. Alara shook her head. No. I would heal it. The vote was cast. Not unanimous, but enough. The covenant's mandate of eradication was revoked. Hybrid persecution ended. The silence, finally, was broken. Lucien felt it then. Not victory. Relief. Ironvale Estate felt warmer when they returned. Sunrise crept across the horizon, not bright but present. Ilara stood on the balcony, wrapped in Mara's shawl, watching the light. Lucien joined her quietly. "You changed everything," he said. Ilara smiled faintly. "I just told the truth." Lucien hesitated. "You could rule." Ilara turned to him. "And you could conquer." They shared a look. Neither wanted that anymore. Lucien bowed his head, not as a king but as a grandfather. "You are my greatest legacy," he said. Ilara's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted a home." Lucien placed a gentle hand over hers. "You have one." Below them the estate stirred, not with fear but with life. And far away, in a world that would slowly learn to be kinder, the granddaughter of a vampire king proved that power did not have to destroy. Sometimes, it chose to protect. The end.